Okay, we've reached the top of the hour, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us for today's webinar, The 3 Pillars of Records Management Success. We appreciate you joining us today. The first thing I'd like to do is take a quick moment and introduce our speakers. My name is Maya Woldridge, and I'm the Business Development Representative here at Gimmal. And today I'm joined by our key speaker, Solution Architect Tim Butler. Before we get started, I do have a few housekeeping items to note. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to go ahead and submit them in the Q&A section on your screen, and we'll answer as many as we have time for at the end of the presentation. There will also be a few poll questions that you'll see pop up, so please keep an eye out for those. And as always, if you have any technical difficulties, please let us know and we'll assist you. So over the next couple of slides, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Gimmal and how we can help you take control of your information with our suite of solutions. Founded in 2002, Gimmal is a records information management and governance software company that helps you balance the value your information provides with the risk it also presents. Whether you are trying to discover information in unstructured data sources, migrate from legacy systems, or comply with policies across multiple repositories, Gimmal can help you achieve your information governance goals. We have a client success team and a global network of partners that deliver solutions in conjunction with key partners like Microsoft and SAP. Gimmal's family of software products work together to let you create an efficient digital workplace. Our comprehensive solutions, there on the screen, include migration, file analysis and e-discovery, electronic and physical records management, and also document management for SAP. And with that, Tim, I'll go ahead and give you the floor to begin our presentation.
Awesome. Thanks, Maya. And thank you, everyone, for attending. So good afternoon, good evening, good morning, as the case may be. As always, we're grateful for you taking a few minutes out of your busy day and spending it with us. We hope it'll be beneficial to you, and we'll find out as we go through the remainder of the webinar. Guys, I do want to mention here right up front that sort of the focus of this particular webinar, I'm going to make an apology, if you will, for those of you attending today that are seasoned veterans. This webinar is not really geared towards you. Now, I want you to stay on, obviously, and just have a listen. I think you'll still find it beneficial because really what I hope it will prove to be for you is just a set of good reminders. If you're like me, from time to time, you're so caught up in the tyranny of the urgent and the busyness of life and work that sometimes you just lose sight of what's really important, keeping the main thing the main thing. So I'm hoping at least here this afternoon, from my perspective, in these 30 minutes, that you'll just get a chance to refresh as we kind of get to the end here of a difficult 2021, which came on the heels of a probably even more difficult 2020, that you'll have a chance just to take a breather and take a step out of all those trees and get a look or a glance, if you will, at the forest itself. But rather, the webinar, guys, really is intended more for the newcomers, those who are relatively new to the industry. Guys, we're going to cover, it will be at a very high level. Time will not allow us to get into all kinds of details here, but I hope it will prove to be beneficial wisdom to you. And as we look at these foundational issues, and along those lines, guys, I just want to throw in, for those of you new to the industry, there's probably folks, non-Gimmal folks on this webinar who have tons and tons of experience. Do not be shy about reaching out to them, right? Become aware of those around you in the industry for whom it is not their first rodeo. Most folks are very helpful, willing to share with you some nuggets of wisdom. Today is just one more attempt to do that. Now, with that, and to help us really, me in particular, help me understand who is in attendance today, I'd appreciate it, guys, if you just take a moment. And as our team puts up the first poll, how many years have you spent in a records management position of authority? Not really interested here in just how long you've been involved in records management, maybe as an end user, but really at some level of authority. If you take a moment just to select one of those choices there, I'd be grateful for that. All right. Give our team a moment to tabulate the results there and see if we can present those. And let's just spend a moment taking a look here. So Wow, pretty even spread. A little bit interesting to me, guys. Largest category, 10 to 20 years. That's actually very helpful for me to know. And as I quickly look at it there, we're looking at that as really only 32% of you, if we add those numbers, that are 10 or more years experience. So on the whole, a bit of a younger crowd here, but thank you guys. Appreciate you're doing that for us. So let's close that guy, come back. All right, guys, so here's what we're going to do today. We're really going to take two flyovers, if you will. I just asked you a single poll question, and there's going to be two more at the end, and I actually want to introduce the second poll question right now. Not that I'm going to bring it on the screen, but it's going to require a little bit more thought on your part, so I want to raise the question now, and it's related to the three tiles you see on this slide. Our flyovers today, we're going to be looking at the three pillars, as was mentioned in the title of the webinar: the people, the processes, and the tools or the technology that underlie a successful records management program. And the question I really would be keen to get your input on towards the end here, I'll ask it at the very end. But considering these three pillars, for those of you that have been in the industry for any length of time, in which of these three areas have you found your most challenging issue that you have faced? I'm well aware, guys, some of you will say, well, Tim, it's all three. I appreciate that. But if you could just be thinking about this through the course of the webinar here and towards the end, let us know in which of these three you found the most difficult challenge itself. All right, so with that, let's take flyover number one. We're going to take the 50,000 foot, really high level guys here, and just touch upon some of the basic foundational principles of a successful program. First of all, as relates to people. So guys, no rocket science stuff here, right? This is all just stuff you need to hear at least once, and then just begin to build that framework for your program. When it comes to the people who are involved in your records management program, you're seeing a list of them right there in terms of how they're grouped. These are the folks you need to be aware of, that you need to strategize with in order to successfully leverage their capabilities as part of the program itself. So the executive level, right? Generally speaking, these are the people within your organization that in that organizational hierarchy, they are somewhere above you, right? This could be C-level folks. This could be compliance folks, could be security folks, right? We just want to be aware they are part of the equation. Team members, how big is your records management team? And I really mean the more records management folks here, not the liaisons, so to speak, but the team members. A lot of you, I'm sure, would say, hey, Tim, I am a team of one. Understood. In fact, there's a good chance that's a majority of you. But for those of you that work in larger organizations, right, we just need to be cognizant of who comprises our actual records management team. Number three are the owners within your records management program. Generally speaking, guys, these are the department heads or folks out in those business areas that are the ones creating the records, the ones who need access to those records. We want to make sure we're strategizing to accommodate and include them as part of our records management program. The authorizers, sometimes it's one and the same as the owners themselves. But those authorizers, those are the folks, right, that towards the end of life from whom you will be seeking approval for disposition purposes, or it also can include members of your legal team within your organization who need to step in and put things on hold or provide insight or remove records from hold. Of course, we can't forget people group number five here, guys, the users themselves. Almost always, this is the largest group of people in your records management program, right? Obviously, we got to be aware of what they need so they can do their job as part of your records management program itself. And then finally, for those of you that are managing physical hard copy records, for some of you, especially those of you using the third-party offsite vendor storage providers, need to include them as part of your strategizing as well. So very high level. We'll get down in a little more detail in a few moments, but these are the people groups, right, that you need to be aware of. So pillar number two, let's take the 50,000 foot view at the processes. Guys, there's actually so many ways to slice and dice. And actually, this is just one take on it. Could have gone a lot of ways with this, but to have, with the little time we have, to at least take one stab at it. Guys, the 6 records management specific processes you see on the screen here, each of these could actually be a webinar in and of itself, and maybe we'll actually do that as we move forward. But just to get the conversation started, as you're overseeing a records management program, at a minimum, right, you need to be thinking about, planning for, and really becoming the expert at least for these 6 processes. Number 1, records creation, right? Where are records coming from? How are things becoming records? Who's the one doing the creating? How are they created? All those good questions. Once they're created, record availability. Who needs access to what? Records discovery related to record availability, right? But usually at a larger scale. As our society, at least here in the States, continues to become more and more litigious, this becomes more and more prevalent. We need to make sure we're planning our processes around those record discovery issues. Our records protection. In the end, guys, this kind of boils down to security protocols, what needs to be in place there in terms of the processes. Number 5 is a bit of an anomaly, this whole records preservation concept, kind of the new kid on the block, if you will. We won't spend a lot of time talking about this, but it is becoming more and more ubiquitous. You're going to need to be aware of the processes surrounding that preservation concept itself. And then, of course, this last one here, probably perhaps the most important process for you to be the expert on. Eventually, right, your records need to be dispositioned, whether that means a transfer or a destruction or what have you. It's just in your overall planning and strategy, at a minimum, 6 processes to be aware of. Keeping it moving, guys, right along here. Pillar number 3, again, still at the 50,000-foot view. Let's take a look here at the technology and the tools. So lots of things we could say here, guys. We're just going to highlight a few. First of all, what is the underlying technology platform itself? Right. So overall, guys, there's 2 players in this game in terms of a technology platform. There are the cloud-based solutions, and they're on-premises based solutions. Again, not enough time to get into all the details, but more or less the right answer, in air quotes, if you will, nowadays, is a cloud-based solution. Yes, there are exceptions to that rule, but really, as you're considering your records management process from a technology perspective, need to be aware of this, right? What is the platform that is in place in terms of the overall underlying technology? Related to that, how contemporary is the technology? It's wonderful if you have a cloud or a browser-based solution, but if it's aging, got to be aware of that, right? How contemporary is the technology that you have in place? Still at that 50,000-foot view, guys, how structured is the technology? Now, a little bit in the weeds here, but really what we're talking about is how is the data stored within your RM program? For example, I have folks that say to me quite often, Tim, we've got all of our stuff in PDFs. Isn't that great? The answer is no, that is not great. There is certainly a place in the world for PDFs and documents like that. But in terms of making data available for searching purposes or for tabulation purposes or reporting purposes, discovery purposes, this all can be kind of summarized in how mature is the structure of your data itself. And then finally on this slide here, again at this high level, how standardized is the technology itself? Is it really in place what you've got right now? Is it some bespoke or customized solution that maybe is wonderful for what you do? But again, guys, with the air quotes, once again, the right answer here is whenever possible, you really want to pursue software that is off the shelf and not something that's just a one-off just for you guys itself. All right, so let's bring the plane down about 45,000 feet here, guys, and let's just take a look at the 5,000-foot view with those same 3 pillars, if you will, and get into at least a little bit of detail here. So back to people, pillar number 1, who have you got? Now, keeping in mind the 6 groups that I mentioned earlier, from executive to records management and what have you, right? I think this goes without saying. It's just a common sense point I wanted to include on this slide here. Make sure you know who's a part of the records management program. I can't tell you how many times as a vendor I've been on a call and heard records managers realize only then that there are resources within the organization they had no idea were actually part of the records management program. So obviously be aware of that. How many have you got, right? For a lot of you, if you're in a smaller organization, this is not all that many, but for some of you in the larger companies, lots and lots of people, right? You've got to have some basic concept of who's the audience out there for the tool that you're going to be using. How capable are they and how willing are they? Guys, these two kind of go together. And the reason I put them here, this happens all the time, right? You may have awesome people in your organization that are very willing to be a part of your records management efforts, whether they be executives above you, they be cohorts of yours, or end users. If they're capable and they're not willing, then that should direct you to do some things to help them be more willing. If they're willing but they're not capable, for example, let's take that one. If they're very willing but they're not capable, that should be a flag to you. Hey, I need to focus some attention on making them more capable. It's invest some time and some resources, if you will, into helping them become more capable. If they're capable but they're not willing, that might be, hey, maybe I need to talk to the executive team and say, hey, guys, I've got these folks, they're capable, they're just not willing. And sometimes they're just not willing because they simply just don't have time, which is related to that next bullet point there. They may be awesome resources, capable and willing, but availability, they just don't have the time to do it. And so there's where you might want to escalate things and say, hey, C-level guys, I've got great folks, but we've got to work on giving them some time to tend to their records management duties. And then the last thing here, guys, really, this is a very tough one. You need to at least ask the question, though, how teachable are those folks within your records management program? And if your answer is, Tim, you know what? They're actually not very teachable at all. I wish I had a great piece of advice to give to you, but I honestly do not. This is a very hard one, but you can't just dismiss it. If you've got folks that are just not willing to learn, you got to figure out some way to deal with them. You simply just can't ignore them. All right, moving over 5,000 foot view now to processes. And guys, really focused upon the records managers themselves, guys. If there's any area of the program where you need to be the expert, it's this one in terms of this pillar. The processes within your organization, number one, are they understood? All those various processes, right, that are a part of the records management discipline, are they understood? So, things like how is content stored in your organization? Are you aware of that? When does the content actually become a record? Are you familiar with those details? How are records created or how are records modified? Do the end users themselves know how to do this? Do they even need to know that they're doing that? Can the whole records management discipline kind of be an automated piece to them? They don't need to be experts in. Is there at least, for example, a basic understanding within your organization in terms of processes, the difference between just content, documents, and records themselves? What are the expected life cycles? And the list goes on, guys. Who needs access and who needs access at one level? So all of these boil down to, are your processes understood when it comes to the records management perspective itself? Guys, number two, are they repeatable? Let's say you're in awesome shape and you say, Tim, yeah, I've got this covered. I know our processes. Big question here. Are they repeatable? Are they changing all the time? You guys know this. It drives everybody crazy. Are they understood enough so that they're repeatable by the majority of users? Things are not always changing. There's not new variables to the equation. Are they burdensome? Number three, guys. Even when you have these in place, sometimes it is really worth your effort to review them, to update these, because they're just simply too complex or too onerous for people to really comply. I actually see this complaint a lot from end users. Are they aware of the process? Yep, I'm aware. Do you have time to do it? And yeah, I probably have time. But you know what, Tim? They just take forever, or they are incredibly this, that, or the other, and they find them burdensome. So focus some attention on that, guys. Be an expert in making sure that they are not burdensome as best you can. And then finally, guys, here in terms of processes at this 5,000 foot view, are they documented? I think maybe the best way to summarize this, guys, is don't do to your successor what was done to you, right? I can't tell you how many times I've heard people tell me, records managers, Tim, you have no idea of the mess I inherited. Well, actually, I do have some idea because I've heard that same sad story many, many times. Well, guys, you know what? The old adage, do unto others as you would have done unto you. leave the records management program in better shape than you found it. And part of that, a big part of that, includes making sure your processes are documented. Unlike sort of the wilderness paradigm, right, of leave no trace, just the opposite. When it comes to your program and the processes involved, leave all kinds of traces. Do a really good job of documenting your processes and then updating those as necessary. And then finally, back to pillar number 3, guys, the technology itself. Let's take a little closer look at that. What have you got, right? How many records repositories do you have? Guys, I hear this quite often. I sometimes hear dozens from larger organizations. Tim, we've got dozens of repositories for our records. We've got this, we've got that, we've got 6 of these and another 6 of those. You need to have an inventory, right, guys? This is what this boils down to, especially if you're new to your company or to the program itself. Make sure you get a thorough inventory of what have you got. This also, I've heard many times as we're engaging with a client where the records manager says, in fact, just recently had a client that said, what? We have a vault full of microfilm that has records they didn't even know, right? So make sure you're aware of the inventory of what you've got. Secondly, who are the stakeholders, right? And we sort of covered this up at the very top at the 50,000 foot view with the people, those different groups of people, if you will. But really, what I'm aiming at here, guys, in terms of this is be aware of the players that are in the game here from a records management perspective. They come with a different perspective. For example, you're going to have security resources within your organization. When it comes to technology, they're going to look at whatever solutions you put in place from that perspective. Is it secure? Is our data safe? Using this particular solution. You're going to have compliance folks who look at it with those eyeglasses, right? Hey, is this tool going to help us be compliant from a regulatory perspective? You're going to have IT. Again, generally speaking, they're going to want to know, is this available on the cloud? Because it makes their lives easier. And then, of course, we can't forget the end users, right? Even if you can say check, check, check to all the above, if the tool you wind up using is so complicated, the end users don't get it. What's the point, right? You need their buy-in. And then finally, guys, be aware, don't forget yourself, right? Whatever tool or tools you put in place, although it's really wonderful to be pursuing, as we mentioned up front, off-the-shelf software, you do not want software that is one size fits all, right? If you have to, you have to. But if at all possible, look for solutions that are very highly configurable. They're still off the shelf, but they're configurable so you can leverage that to make them work as best as they can for your organization. And then, guys, how available is the technology? Again, this comes back mostly to the point we've made a couple of times now, but all possible. Adopt solutions that are on the cloud because you can get to them from anywhere, and they are incredibly safe, unlike they were maybe a decade ago. Very, very safe in the cloud environments. And then finally, for those of you in the larger organizations, you can't forget this one, right? When you're talking millions or tens of millions of records or lots and lots of footprint in terms of terabytes of data, how scalable is the technology itself? Is it still going to perform well even at scale? All right, so guys, I know we've gone at a pretty quick pace here, but wanted to get through this high-level material. And here's that second poll question that I wanted to make sure we included here. So I'm hoping you have been thinking about this, and here it comes now. If you wouldn't mind, again, taking just a moment, picking one of these, let us know, if you will, where you found the most significant challenges in the course of your career. And while you're filling this out, guys, I'll make one other comment here. As always, we very much invite you in the chat to leave us suggestions for things you'd like to hear in future webinars or how you would improve this webinar. We're very open to some constructive criticism there, so please let us know your thoughts, how we can make these better. All right, let's take a look at our results here. So yeah, I guess, I knew that was going to be the case, and I'm not surprised. The combination category, more than half of you totally get it, guys. It's this three-legged stool, right? And it'd be wonderful if all 3 legs were perfectly the same length and strong and sturdy. Often it's not just one leg that's messed up. You've got more than one leg messed up. But nonetheless, they're people. Fascinating point here, guys. I think any topic we would cover, any industry, any discipline, if you gave these 3 same categories, which you can, by the way, people, processes, and technology, I think people would always be the number one challenge, right? It's because they're like us and we've got issues and they can be very difficult to work with. So, all right, let's close that out. And guys, I appreciate you're taking the time to do that. And with that, I'd like to turn things back over to Maya for one more poll question and then to close us out.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Tim. Lots of really great information. We've got one last poll question here. It'll pop up on our screen shortly. But would you like more information about how Gimmal can help you achieve records management success? And if you do have any questions you thought of during this presentation, be sure to get those down in the Q&A section on the bottom of your screen. And while we're here, we can go ahead and start answering some of those questions. The first one, many of my stakeholders still ask what the difference really is between records management and information management or document management. Any thoughts on this?
Yes, all kinds of thoughts, but it can't even begin to give you the fuller answer. That in itself, guys, would be another whole webinar conversation itself. But very quickly, guys, I'll give you sort of the shooting from the hip definition. Records in your organization is information that has reached a critical point of maturity. Now, I know that's a little bit abstract and you're going to say, well, I don't know what to do with that, but it is the quickest definition I know of when you compare that to documents. And then the information management, a whole nother topic that's very inclusive of document management, records management, and other disciplines as well.
All right, great. All right, and if we don't have any other questions slip in here, I'll go ahead and close this out. If you do have any additional questions you think of or even think of after this presentation, feel free to reference our contact information there on the screen. You can also send us an email at info@gimmal.com or visit our website at www.gimmal.com. And for those interested in a recording of this webinar, we will be sending that out between 24 to 48 hours from now in the form of a thank you email. But with that, thank you, everyone. Be sure to join our webinar next week, Records Preservation. Do you need it? And we appreciate your time today.